this is article number 19. Acha, with article number 18, right to equality is over. From now we have right to freedom. So we have, this is right to freedom. This is next category of fundamental rights. Okay? So article number 19, from here we will be starting with the right to freedom, the second category of rights. Now what article number 19 talks about? See, article number 19 talks about a certain rights related to freedom of speech and expression. Okay? Certain rights related to freedom of speech and expression. Okay. Now, there is something to be noted down with respect to article number 19. First, freedom of speech and expression is the first category of right, या फिर you can say is the first right related to freedom. ठीक है? So it is the first right related to freedom. So when we say something which is mentioned at the very priority, that means it is very important as well, right? So article number 19 is actually very important right, and hence this is considered to be a backbone. It is the backbone of fundamental rights. The entire fundamental rights में जो सबसे important backbone है, backbone is something which gives you a structure. Backbone is something by which you can actually stand, right? Imagine कि a person without a backbone, वो ऐसे tilt हो जाएगा पूरा. So he is standing straight forward only because of the backbone. Backbone is very important thing. So similarly, in all the fundamental rights, this particular fundamental right is considered to be the backbone of the entire chapter. Okay? So this means it is very important. Next, this fundamental right, this right is available only to the citizen. It is available. The right that we will be talking about, this right is available only to citizens, right? Not to the foreigners. It is only to the citizens, right? Then next thing, this is available only against the state, So this right, unlike article number 15 clause 2, unlike article number 17, this right is not against the private individual, it is only against the state. Okay? So here we will be talking how state, this particular right protects you from the state. Okay? So article number 19 talks about certain rights. When we say certain rights, what do you think? There is only one right or more than one right? What will be the case? More than one right. Now, it talks about certain rights which are related to freedom of speech and expression. Yet we have not talked about the rights. This is the title of this article number 19. The title of article number 19 is certain rights related to freedom of speech and expression. And this is the first right in the category of freedom of right to freedom. So it is the first right related to freedom. This is so important. Once we will start discussing article number 19, you will realize that this particular article is so important that it has been regarded as the backbone of fundamental right. Then next, it is available only to the citizen and it is available only against the state. Okay. Now see, this, what are these certain rights? So article number 19 talks about 6 different rights. There are 6 different rights which are related to freedom of speech and expression. Okay. Now what are these rights? Pehla, it gives an individual the right to speak, right to express himself or herself, right? So first right is simply freedom of speech and expression by an individual, right? This is actually by an individual. So this is the first category of rights under this article number 19. The first right what article number 19 gives you is freedom of speech and expression. You can speak, you can express yourself, you can say what you think. If you think there is something to criticize against the government, you have been given the authority that yes, individually if you want to speak against the government, you can do so, right? So it is only article number 19 that has given you this right. And remember, this is article number 19 ka clause 1. Clause 1 mein you have these rights mentioned. Okay? Article number 19 mein there are certain points. Point. These points are nothing but clause. So clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, clause 5, clause 6, right? Different clause. It is this clause in which all the rights have been mentioned. So A, B, C, D, E, right? So this is Article 19, Clause 1 में पहला right, that is freedom of speech and expression. This is basically for an individual. Any individual who has, any individual has the right to speak. Speak means to express yourself, right? You can say what you want. Then second, this is the right which says similar, like-minded people, similar to your ideology, the ideology or what you think, similar type of people, they can gather together, right? And together, by gathering, you can actually, by assembling, you can express, you all together can express your thought, right? So second thing, it gives you a right to assemble. You can assemble, right? That is right to assembly. Yeah, assemble. Abhi likh deta hu, right? Then third, this particular article gives you a right with respect to form the union. अब आप लोग यूनियन भी अपना बना सकते हो, ठीक? I give you an example. If you understand, this will be easy to understand via example. See, I thought one day, see, whatever we are, it is the result of our thinking. Do you agree with this? Virat Kohli, once upon a time, he thought that I will be playing for Team India. I want to play cricket. This was the thought. And then it turned into reality, and now he is playing a cricket, right? I thought that I will be teaching in the Upsc institute or something. Because of that, I am here. I never imagined to get into WWE, and hence I am not there, right? Whatever we are, it is nothing but the result or the outcome of our thought process. Somewhere we started to think about it, and then it turned into a reality, and whatever we are, it is that, right? So we need to understand that every journey starts with thinking. You have certain idea in your mind. Imagine this as a brain. Somewhere in our brain we have some thought, right? And that thought later, with so many steps, it later turns into a reality, right? Do you know India became independent in the year 1947? Agree? This is the reality. But do you know, there are so many years before, many Indians, and leave all Indians, just talk about Mahatma Gandhi. Somewhere Mahatma Gandhi thought that I will throw Britishers out of my country and I will make sure that India is free, right? This was the thought process. Some time ago, he decided, well before he decided, or he had a thought of independent India. He decided of independent India. He was having this thought process. He was having this idea in his brain of independent India. Now how this entire thing happened? अब ये महात्मा गांधी के दिमाग में है this idea of independent India. He started to express this idea to all his fellow peoples कि भाई हम सबको मिलकर काम करना पड़ेगा. We will fight against the Britishers. We will fight against the Britishers and will throw Britishers out of India, right? So he started to talk to every Indians, right? And then you will see that people gathered with him, people associated with him, and somewhere if he want to do the satyagraha or anything, the people were with him, and then he was able to express his idea before the government, and anyhow he was in the position to negotiate with the government, right? So पहले तो गांधी जी अकेले थे, फिर गांधी जी का बात सुन के और 10 लोग आ गए साथ में, राइट? ग्रुप बन गया, एक असेंबली फॉर्म हुई, राइट? गांधी जी ने बोला कि भाई ये ग्रुप को हम क्यों ना एक यूनियन में कन्वर्ट कर देते हैं, तो यही कांग्रेस बना. वैसे कांग्रेस तो पहले से बन चुकी थी, बट जस्ट इमेजिन कि दिस इज द हाउ द होल जर्नी गोज ऑन. नाउ दिस पीपल व्हाट दे डिड, अर्लियर दे वर जस्ट coming together. Now this togetherness has been converted into a union called Indian National Congress. See how our freedom fighters, the forefathers, they have obtained the freedom for us. But how this all thing happened? Somewhere there was some group of people or some people who had the idea of independent India, and then this idea they expressed with all the fellow people. People were convinced with this idea and they associated with these people. They were ready to join these people कि हाँ भाई हम लोग मिलकर काम करेंगे और इंडिया को आज़ाद करेंगे. तो एक अकेला आदमी था, देखते देखते उसके साथ पूरा ग्रुप आ गया. फिर जब लोग आए तो इस लोगों को मिलाकर एक ग्रुप बनाया, ठीक है? अब ये ग्रुप को मूवमेंट करने की जरूरत है. यू हैव टू मूव, गो एट नंबर ऑफ प्लेस. सी लिव महात्मा गांधी एंड ऑल दोस थिंग. टेक एन एग्जांपल ऑफ अरविंद केजरीवाल. Do you know Arvind Kejriwal, in one of his interview, he said that many years before when I was fighting against the corruption, there were no people with me. It is me who is to always, go to the different colonies and say to the people, I am fighting against the corruption. I want you people to join me. Please join me. Please join me. So originally, Arvind Kejriwal had the idea of corruption-free India. He was individually there. But later he convinced so many people, and Manish Sisodia, then Kumar Vishwas and many other people, they were convinced with his idea and they associated with him. They joined him. So earlier he was alone, but now he has a group of some people, right? Then what he did in the Ram Leela Maidan, there he made an announcement of the formation of Aam Aadmi Party. This union, this particular group was turned into a union, an official group. So he formed Aam Aadmi Party. The moment he formed the Aam Aadmi Party, he started to visit the different part of India, convincing more and more people so that more and more people will join this party, right? So he started to do a movement, right, to the different parts of Delhi and even different parts of India, right? Now, when you do a movement, when you go to some place, you also need to stay there. For example, if Arvind Kejriwal or if someone goes to South India, if you want to convey some idea, of course he needs some time, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. तो वहाँ जाकर जब आप कुछ idea को convince कर रहे हो, तो you need a time to stay. गया और तुरंत बोल कर आया, that is not possible. You need some time कि वहाँ जाऊँ, जाकर बोलूँ, लोगों के बीच में रहना भी पड़ेगा. So this is by default that person need to stay, right? और जब stay आप करोगे, फिर हो सकता है कि वहाँ पर पार्टी का ऑफिस बनाओगे, तो this means कि प्रॉपर्टी भी हो जाएगा. There will be a property as well. There will be a property as well, right? और फिर बाद में later it was seen that Aam Aadmi Party won the election in Delhi, and then they formed the government, and then this turned into a reality, and they are saying that now we are in the position we have actually reduced the corruption rate in Delhi, and in fact there is no corruption and all those things they are saying. So actually you can see this is idea which turned into a reality, and always idea will not directly turn into reality. There are so many steps that need to be fulfilled. Once you do this thing, then only the idea will turn into reality. Okay? See, there was a person called Manohar. Take an example of a Manohar. Manohar was born in India, and at the same time there was a person called Abdul, born in Afghanistan. These two child born in two different places. Manohar born in India and Abdul born in Afghanistan. They both, just after some days of birth, they both imagined that I will become a doctor one day, right? Now this particular person, Manohar, he was having all the infrastructure, he was able to study, he was able to do all this thing, and later this turned into reality and he actually became a doctor. But imagine Abdul, he had the idea, but he could not express this idea because his parents were not so supportive, or the government is not so supportive. Government did not provide all those infrastructure, and because of this, Abdul did not succeed in becoming a doctor. So he did not become the doctor. He had the idea, but did idea turned into reality for Abdul? No. Abdul did not become a doctor. So this means for Abdul the idea did not turn into reality, and this is why, because idea will not turn into reality unless and until the other supplementary rights are available, other supplementary things are available. Okay? So if you want, and this is only when your idea will turn into reality, only in that case you will succeed, you will be able to progress, right? So for the progress of any society, your idea must turn into reality. So whatever idea you think, this will turn into reality if you have all this category of rights, and it is in India that India made this article number 19 provides us with all this category of rights, so that all the citizens of India, they will have the freedom to progress, to succeed, to make a progress in their life. Okay? So what are the different categories of rights? देखिए इसको simple से भी समझ के निपटा देते हैं. What are the different categories of rights? So first, Article 19, it gives an individual the freedom of speech and expression, the right to express yourself, right to say something. Then second, earlier you were alone, now you have similar like you, some people, together you will be expressing those ideas. That is called to assemble, right? Now once you people assembled, now what you people did, you formed your own group, official group, that is called forming an union or association or cooperation. ठीक है? So now you will form the union or association, whatever. ठीक है? Now once your union or association is formed, now what you will be doing, you people will try कि भाई हम लोगों का एक जो ग्रुप बन गया है ना, will move to the other part of India and will see कि हमारे जैसे कितने लोग हैं, उन लोगों को भी हमारे ग्रुप में ऐड कर लेते हैं. So you will start with the another thing that is called movement, right? Movement. With movement, what you required is the right to stay. If you go to some part of India, बहुत दूर जा रहे हो और वहाँ आपको रहने को नहीं मिलेगा तो आप जा ही नहीं पाओगे, ठीक है? तो वहाँ पर आपको रहने का भी कुछ फैसिलिटी चाहिए. So next what right it gives us is the right to stay, that is reside. Stay के मतलब let me write reside or settle. It gives us the right to reside or settle. Reside is the temporary thing and settle is the permanent thing. ठीक है? And then you have the right to own the property. If you go there, you will own the property, because with the property comes the credibility, and with the credibility the people will be convinced, people will understand your idea and people will associate with you. ठीक? And finally there is one thing called right to vocation, right of vocation. Now what is this right of vocation? This means right of vocation simply means कोई trade, business वो सब करना, ठीक है? तो rights of any trade, business and all those things. Trade, business. See, these are the different categories of rights which have been given by article number 19. So article number 19 gives us a certain rights which are related to freedom of speech and expression. And what is these rights? The first right itself is called freedom of speech and expression, but this is enjoyed by an individual. Then second, article 19 clause 1 subclause B gives us the right to assemble. But remember, this assembly should be peaceful, without arms. ये आर्टिकल 19 बोलता है कि भाई तालिबान वाले लोगों के जैसा AK-47 लेकर नहीं बैठने का, ठीक है? So this should be peaceful. This should be without arms. Without arms, ठीक है? Must not carry arm के साथ नहीं बैठने का, right? So without arms, peaceful assemble करने का आपको right मिला है. Then to form the union या association, you have the right to form union, you have the right to form association. Then the right to movement, any part of India में you can do movement. अब वहाँ जाके अगर आपको reside करना है, वहाँ जाकर आपको कुछ settle होना है. See, imagine you have an idea of promoting democracy in the Naxal affected area of India. Like for example, Odisha. There is some part of Odisha where it is completely under the coverage of Naxalism. ठीक है? Naxalites are very active in those part of India. So you have decided that I will do a contribution for my country. I will go and I will promote democracy in that part of India. ठीक है? Now this is one idea that you have at individual level, right? What you did, you tried to look for the similar people who are actually, who think that your idea is actually worthy and they are ready to associate with you. So you started to look for such type of people, and all people came together. You form an assembly. Now you decided कि भाई हम लोग अपना group को है ना register कर लेते हैं. So you registered those things. Now what you will be doing, you people together will be moving to that particular part of Odisha, and there you will be trying to approach the different peoples, the all locals of that area, so that you can influence them with the benefits of democracy, right? You can convince them to favor the democracy, to be in the favor of democracy, right? So is it possible that you can do it from Delhi? You will sit in Delhi, you will be remaining in Delhi, and from here you can convince those people in Odisha, those people residing in the Naxal affected area? Of course not. See, सोशल मीडिया ये बोलने की बात है कि भाई सोशल मीडिया हम लोग उन लोगों को कन्विंस कर पाएंगे, ये नहीं कर पाएंगे, राइट? उन लोगों के पास पहली बात तो इंटरनेट वहाँ अवेलेबल ही नहीं होगा, इंटरनेट अवेलेबल नहीं है. सेकंड चीज़ यू विल सी कि वहाँ पर ये नहीं है, क्या बोलते हैं, मोबाइल लोगों के पास नहीं होगा. So to connect with those people via social media is not possible. You have to go to Odisha. So you need movement कि नहीं? You need the right to movement. If you do not have that right to movement, will you turn your idea into reality? Your idea was to convert those people in the favor of democracy. Thus, the area or the people who are actually right now supporting Naxalism, उन लोगों को आपको change कर देना है किसमें? Democracy के favor में लेके आना है. So, is it possible without movement? Can you do that? No. You need to do a movement. अब जब आप उड़ीसा के उस पार्ट में जाओगे, वहां जाने के बाद में आपको कुछ टाइम तो रुकना पड़ेगा ना, गया जाकर बोला और आ गया, लोग मान जाएंगे? नहीं मानेंगे। वहां पर आपको जाना है, जाकर कुछ टाइम आप रुकोगे, समझोगे, समझाओगे, वहां रुकना पड़ेगा। सो यू हैव टू रिसाइड देयर, राइट। और जब वहां जाकर आप बोलोगे, वहां अगर आप प्रॉपर्टी भी ओन करके रखोगे ना, तो फिर और आपकी क्रेडिट वर्दीनेस बढ़ जाएगी, लोग आपको है ना और ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस देना शुरू करेंगे, ठीक है। तो बाय हैविंग प्रॉपर्टी, अब क्या होगा, अब जब आप लोगों को बोलोगे कि भाई डेमोक्रेसी के फेवर में आओ, नक्सलिज्म बेकार है, तो लोग आपको इंपॉर्टेंस देने लगेंगे, क्योंकि आप उन लोगों के बीच में आए हो, वहां पर रहते हो, पिछले 1-2 महीना 6 महीने से आप रह रहे हो उन लोगों के बीच में, तो पब्लिक लोगों का एक ट्रस्ट बिल्डअप हुआ है, और प्लस आपका घर भी उन लोगों के बीच में ही है, उन लोगों के साथ में ही है, तो और ट्रस्ट वर्दीनेस क्रिएट हो जाता है कि हाँ भाई ये लोग बहुत जेन्युइन होंगे, सो इन लोगों की बात सुनते हैं, देन द पीपल विल फेवर यू एंड पीपल विल एक्चुअली टर्न टू डेमोक्रेसी, राइट। Now, so this is how actually your idea will turn into reality. And finally एक vocation है, ये लेकिन अलग से होता है, trade, business, ये सब occupation को भी करना. So these are the different categories of rights which have been given by article number 19. ठीक है? But these rights, the rights which are mentioned here, these rights are not absolute right. All these rights are subject to, these are subject to reasonable restriction. Reasonable restriction, right? Now what is reasonable restriction? Why do we have this concept of reasonable restrictions? देखो, पहली बात, reasonableness का मतलब क्या होता है? What do we understand by the term reasonableness? Reasonableness का मतलब ये होता है कि restrictions उतना ही लगेगा जितना required है for the smooth functioning of the state. See, imagine, अभी मैंने आपको freedom दिया, freedom to speak anything. You will start speaking against India. You may start speaking against any social order or anything. So don't you think that if I give you the liberty to speak, and if you speak against India, there will be some disturbance that may take place, that may be arise. Do you agree with this? है ना? आपको मैंने बोला कि आप कुछ भी बोलो, आपने बोल दिया हिंदुस्तान के 100 टुकड़े हो जाएंगे, अब उससे तो नीचे दंगा शुरू हो गया, राइट शुरू हो जाएगा, है कि नहीं? सो अब आपके जो लिबर्टी है, लिबर्टी टू स्पीक, उसके ऊपर कुछ रेस्ट्रिक्शंस भी तो लगना चाहिए। अगर नहीं लगेगा तब तो फिर आप कुछ भी बोल दोगे और झगड़ा हर जगह होना शुरू हो जाएगा, है कि नहीं? तो रेस्ट्रिक्शंस, कुछ रेस्ट्रिक्शंस है, जैसे फिर अब मैं आपको बोलूंगा कि यू कैन स्पीक बट यू कैन नॉट स्पीक अगेंस्ट द कोर्ट, यू कैन नॉट स्पीक अगेंस्ट द कंट्री, सो सच टाइप ऑफ रेस्ट्रिक्शंस आर इम्पोज्ड, राइट। सो रीजनेबल रेस्ट्रिक्शंस, एक तो पहली बात यहां से ये पता चल गया कि आर्टिकल 19 राइट्स अंडर Article 19 are not absolute, right? Absolute. मतलब ये rights कैसे हैं? इन rights के ऊपर restrictions लगा हुआ है. These are restricted rights. Restricted rights. When we say restricted rights, कैसा restriction है? तो इसके ऊपर reasonable restriction है. Reasonable restriction, right? Reasonableness का मतलब क्या हो गया? Reasonableness simply means not more than the restrictions which are required for the smooth functioning of the state, right? Only restrictions only to the extent required for smooth functioning of the state, or functioning of the state, ठीक है? स्टेट के स्मूथ फंक्शनिंग के लिए जो रिक्वायर्ड है, वो रेस्ट्रिक्शन को क्या कहा जाता है? रीजनेबल रेस्ट्रिक्शन. ओके, नाउ who will decide this reasonable restriction, whether the restriction is reasonable or not, and who will apply this reasonable restrictions? So these restrictions can be applied only by, यानी applied only by legislature, ठीक है? And reasonableness will be decided by judiciary. Will be decided by judiciary, ठीक है? जुडिशरी में बेसिकली हाई कोर्ट एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट होता है, ठीक है, हाई कोर्ट एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट। और जब भी रीजनेबलनेस को डिसाइड करना है, इसका मतलब जुडिशरी क्या फॉलो करेगी, जुडिशरी विल फॉलो अ डॉक्ट्रिन कॉल्ड ड्यू प्रोसेस ऑफ लॉ, ड्यू प्रोसेस ऑफ लॉ। ठीक है जी, देखिए आर्टिकल 19 का ये जो राइट्स है ना, ये राइट्स एब्सोल्यूट नहीं है। देखो फॉर एग्जांपल मुझे एक राइट मिला, दैट इज राइट टू स्पीक, राइट। अब इमेजिन इफ आई स्पीक एनीथिंग, आई हैव द राइट टू स्पीक, बट देयर शुड बी सर्टेन लिमिटेशन। इफ आई स्पीक एनीथिंग, then there is a possibility that with some of my statement there will be a disturbance in the society. For example, अब मुझे बोलने का राइट क्या मिला, मैंने बोल दिया मुस्लिम रिलीजन बेकार है, क्रिश्चियन रिलीजन बेकार है, तो मुस्लिम लोग चिढ़ेगा कि नहीं, चिढ़ेगा ना। फिर दे विल स्टार्ट फाइटिंग अगेंस्ट द हिंदू और दे विल स्टार्ट राइट्स और वॉट एवर थिंग दैट देयर मे बी अ डिस्टर्बेंस इन द सोसाइटी, है ना। तो इसलिए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मुझे बोलता है कि यू हैव द राइट टू स्पीक बट यू कैनॉट स्पीक सर्टन थिंग, दैट इज द रेस्ट्रिक्शन, राइट। और वो सर्टन थिंग क्या होगा, कितना होगा, वो उसको एक रीजनेबलनेस होगा। रीजनेबलनेस मतलब उतना ही रेस्ट्रिक्शन लगेगा जितना कि स्मूथ फंक्शनिंग के लिए रिक्वायर्ड है, अदरवाइज आई एम फ्री। जहां पर मेरे बोलने से डिस्टर्बेंस कॉज होगा, ओनली एट दैट प्लेस देयर विल बी रेस्ट्रिक्शन, अदरवाइज आई विल बी फ्री टू स्पीक। ठीक है, सो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्लियरली मेंशंस कि रेस्ट्रिक्शन कैसा होगा, रीजनेबल होगा। जितना रीजनेबल रिक्वायर्ड है बस उतना ही रेस्ट्रिक्शन होगा, उससे ज्यादा रेस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं हो सकता। ठीक है जी, अब ये रीजनेबलनेस का कौन सा रीजनेबल रेस्ट्रिक्शन है वो तो बाद में देखेंगे, लेकिन इससे क्या इन्फर होता है कि आर्टिकल 19 एब्सोल्यूट राइट नहीं है, इट इज अ रेस्ट्रिक्टेड राइट्स। और रेस्ट्रिक्शन कितना है, रीजनेबल। रीजनेबलनेस का मतलब क्या होता है, ओनली टू द एक्सटेंट विच इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर द स्मूथ फंक्शनिंग ऑफ द स्टेट, उससे ज्यादा रेस्ट्रिक्शंस नहीं लगेगा। ठीक है, एंड देन ये रेस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाती कौन है, लेजिस्लेचर, यानी पार्लियामेंट हो या स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर हो, दे विल मेक द लॉ एंड बाय लॉ दे विल इंपोज द रेस्ट्रिक्शंस, राइट। And who will check the reasonableness, whether the restriction which is applied by the legislature is reasonable or not? कहीं ज़्यादा तो नहीं है, अगर ज़्यादा हो जाएगा तो it will cause a chilling effect on this particular rights, right? Reasonable होना चाहिए, ज़्यादा अगर restriction हो गया तो फिर ये rights मेरा chilling effect पे चले जाएगा, मतलब वो ठंडे बस्ते में एक तरीके से चले गया। ठीक है, so who will decide, who will see whether the things are reasonable or not, whether the restrictions are reasonable or not? So it is judiciary. Judiciary का high court, supreme court, they are the people who will be deciding whether it is reasonable or not. ठीक है, और जब कभी भी judiciary reasonableness को check करती है तो समझ जाइएगा वहाँ पर वो एक doctrine called due process of law को follow करती है। ठीक है, so the doctrine of due process of law is being followed. Okay, now the thing comes कि ये जो reasonable restrictions है ये क्या क्या है, what are these reasonable restrictions? Article 19 mentions some of the ground for reasonable restrictions, like for this one, for this, it says reasonable restrictions 8 ground पे लगाया जा सकता है, 8 grounds, 8 grounds. This is mentioned in clause number 2. This was mentioned in clause 1. Clause 1 में ये सारे लिखे हुए। Clause number 2 of article number 19. Article 19 mentions the 8 grounds on which reasonable restriction can be imposed on the freedom of speech and expression of an individual. What are those 8 grounds? One is security, sovereignty and the integrity of the state of India. Then we have security of the state. Then we have, you can say this one. क्या बोल देंगे, पब्लिक ऑर्डर। पब्लिक ऑर्डर इज द अनदर ग्राउंड। ठीक है, पब्लिक ऑर्डर वी विल टॉक अबाउट दिस, व्हाट इज पब्लिक ऑर्डर एंड ऑल दिस थिंग इन डिटेल। ठीक है, पब्लिक ऑर्डर। देन वी हैव कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्ट, वी हैव मोरालिटी एंड डिसेंसी, देन वी हैव फ्रेंडली रिलेशन विद द फॉरेन स्टेट्स, देन वी हैव दिस वन defamation, incitement of crime. These are the 8 grounds which are mentioned in clause number 2 of article number 19. Article 19 का clause number 2 gives us the 8 grounds on which reasonable restrictions can be imposed on the freedom of speech and expression of an individual. ठीक, then article number 19 का clause number 3 gives us 3 grounds on which reasonable restrictions can be imposed on the rights of an individual to assemble, though peaceful and without arms, but despite this the restrictions can be imposed. that is on the ground of integrity of the country, integrity, then public order and morality. Not morality, एक second. Integrity, public order and sovereignty. ठीक है? These are the grounds on which the reasonable restrictions can be imposed. IPS, integrity, public order and sovereignty. ठीक है? Then we have the right to form union and association, and also there is a term called cooperative society, right? This earlier, this particular term was not mentioned. This was added by 97th Constitution Amendment Act in the year 2011. Okay? So this was added by 97th Constitution Amendment Act. Now, on these particular right, again there is a restriction. The restriction has been given in clause number 4 of article number 19. What are those restrictions? Again, I, P, S and M. Integrity, public order, sovereignty, and then we have morality. These are the 4 different grounds on which restrictions can be imposed on this particular right of an individual. Agree? Then we have right to movement, but over this right to movement, over this particular right, again the restrictions can be imposed, and that restrictions, the ground of restrictions are given in clause number 5 of article number 19. What are those restrictions? The ground is in the interest of general public, the interest of general public. Okay? And another, there is the protection of scheduled tribes. Okay? Protection of, absolutely, protection of scheduled tribes. Okay? Now, then we have next right called right to reside and settle. Over this particular right, again the restriction, the ground of restriction has been given by article number 19, clause number 5. The same clause talks about the same thing, imposing the same type of restriction over reside and settle. Then there is a right called right to property. So this particular right has been taken away. Now we don't have this right. Okay? Earlier this was the right, but now this particular right has been removed. This was removed, or this was shifted to, this has been shifted to article number 300A, and this was shifted by 44th Constitution Amendment Act of 1978. Okay? So earlier there was 7 categories of right, 2, 3, 6, 7. Earlier there was 7, but right now we have only 6, right? So there will be a question कि before 1978 there were how many categories of rights, or sorry, there were how many rights in article number 19. So earlier there were 7 rights mentioned in article 19, but right now we have only 6 rights. ठीक है? So ये भी यहाँ पर लिख लेते हैं. Earlier there were 7 rights, है ना? Earlier there were 7 rights. Now we have only 6 rights, correct? The one which was right to property has been removed from here by 44th Constitution Amendment Act during the time of Janata Party government, when Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister of India. Okay? Then we have last right, that is right to vocation. Vocation means right to do trade, business, any occupation. This particular right has been taken away. The restriction can be imposed over this right. The restriction can be imposed, and what can be the ground for imposing restriction? So it is the interest of general public. Interest of general public, right? So now if we sum up all this information, what is it? Article number 19 talks about certain rights related to freedom of speech and expression. Agree? These rights, what we will be discussing about, these rights are the first category of right, first right in the category of right to freedom, right? These rights are considered to be the backbone of the entire chapter of fundamental rights. They are available only to the citizen of India, and they are available only against the state. The rights are mentioned in clause number 1, and from clause number 2 to 6, you will see there are restrictions. Reasonable restrictions ke grounds are mentioned. ठीक है, the grounds of reasonable restriction. So the rights which are mentioned in clause number 1, these are under different subclause. Clause 1 subclause A gives an individual right to freedom of speech and expression, okay, but these particular rights of an individual can be restricted on these 8 grounds. What are those 8 grounds? Sovereignty and integrity of India, security of state, right, public order, contempt of court, morality and decency, friendly relation with the foreign country, defamation, incitement to crime. These are the 8 grounds on which the restriction can be imposed on the freedom of speech and expression. Who has the right to impose a restriction? So it is the legislature. They will make the law and by which they will impose the restriction. Okay. Now, but these restriction must be what? This must be reasonable. Who will decide the reasonableness? It is judiciary, basically High Court and Supreme Court. And while deciding this reasonableness, they follow the procedure that is called due process of law. Okay. Now, the second right, that is right to assemble. Right to assemble. The Constitution says that you have the right to assemble, but you have to reside peacefully and without arms. But if you are assembling without arms, peacefully and that too without arms, even in that case, your assembly can be restricted on the ground of integrity of India, public order and sovereignty. Okay? Then comes the union. The third right that we have is right to form union. अपना एक group बना सकते हैं, union, association or cooperative society. The term cooperative society was inserted by 97th Amendment Act. ठीक है? Now, if you form the union, your union can be restricted on the ground of integrity, public order, sovereignty and morality. Okay? Then comes the movement. You have the right to move. Article 19 clause 1 subclause D gives you the right to move within India, anywhere within India. Okay? So this is the right to move within India. This is with respect to within India. Within India. So you have the right, but your right can be restricted on these grounds. One is the interest of the general public and the other one is the protection of the scheduled tribes, protection of the interest of scheduled tribes. Now, next right, that is right to reside and settle. Again, these right can be restricted on the similar ground, right? Then right to property, but right now we do not have this particular right. It has been taken away by Article 300, has been shifted to Article 300A by 44th Constitution Amendment Act. That means right to property was earlier a constitutional right, but right now it is merely the constitutional. Earlier it was a fundamental right, right now it is merely a constitutional right. Okay. Then comes the right to vocation. Vocation means trade, business and all this thing. You have right to do any trade. You have right to do any business. You have the right to do any, to practice any profession. But your right can be restricted considering the interest of the general public. Okay. So general public को interest देकर government वहाँ पर restrictions लगा सकती है. Like for example, at this moment of time, I decided that I will follow the practice, I will follow the profession of medicine. I will practice the medicine and I will be, from tomorrow onwards, I will be giving the medicines. That means I will be prescribing the medicines to the patients, right? कल तक मैंने साइंस पढ़ा नहीं, अब भी बस डिसाइड किया और कल से मेडिकल खोलने वाला हूँ, क्लिनिक चालू करूँगा, दवा देना. Do you think this is healthy thing or not? Why? See, till yesterday, I never ever studied science, right? Till yesterday, I never studied science. Today, I decided that from tomorrow onwards, I will be prescribing medicines to the patients. So hence what I did, tomorrow I will be opening the clinic and from there I will be prescribing. Do you think this is right thing or wrong? This is actually not a healthy thing, na? Because I never studied science, and if I will be prescribing medicines to the people, then instead of getting cure, उन लोग और तबीयत उन लोगों का खराब ही होएगा और बीमार होते जाएंगे, है कि नहीं है? पॉसिबिलिटी, इससे सोसाइटी का तो इंटरेस्ट हार्म हो जाएगा. इसके लिए गवर्नमेंट ने भले आर्टिकल 19, दो आर्टिकल 19 gives me the right to do practice, trade, business, occupation, anything, but the government has imposed the restriction that you can prescribe the medicine only if you hold the degree of MBBS or MD. If you hold such degree, if you hold such certificate only, then you can prescribe, right? So government has imposed that restriction on me. Now, though I will think of giving a medicine, but legally I am not authorized to do those things, right? Because I do not hold the certificate. So unless and until I hold the certificate, I cannot prescribe this thing. This is the restriction imposed by the government considering the interest of the general public. नहीं तो general public को मार देगा, वैसा हो जाएगा, है ना? So this is about Article 19 का basic thing. अभी बहुत चीज बाकी है. This is basic thing, and उससे related these are some of the interpretations. This is the basic interpretation, I mean basic information